the gospel. And then I took my life, put it in the hands of Jesus, and him and I have been working it ever since. You can't leave your life into the hands of your husband, your wife, your best friend, your church, your government. That's not how this works. You then began to line up with people in relationships that you have something in common with. So if the only thing you got in your life is one miserable day after another, I'm sorry if this is too plain, people that are moving on with their life don't want to be around that. And people that are moving on because they're applying something. I'm talking about church folk, people that know Jesus. They are applying to their life. They're not saying, I'll worry about this tomorrow. Maybe I'll do it next week. Well, next week came and left, sister. And we're in 2018 now. Did that ever occur to you? And what has really changed in your life? And these are the questions that beg an answer from you. From you, not your neighbor. And so a person who's always running from themselves usually is preoccupied with blaming somebody else for their life, not looking at their life through the lens now of their relationship that they have with Jesus Christ. So really you have no life because you come into the house of God week after week after week. And what you're hearing, like Apostle said a few weeks ago, you're going to hear this. And if you're a negative person, you're going to hear it with a negative ear. You don't hear that the gospel is good news. You don't hear that the gospel is the recovery for you out of sin, sickness, and disease. No, you're looking for the next buzz for your life over in this meeting or that place or over in that relationship or over there. And you never, ever, ever, ever look at you and say, Jesus, you and I have got to fix this. It never comes to you. And because if it really, 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 really did, you'd start having victory. You cannot keep saying as a Christian that you're born again and you know Jesus and you're miserable at the same time. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work. It's a dichotomy that can't come together. When Jesus comes into a person's life, they can walk through the same hell that the guy down the street does. But what we should be seeing from that person is a boldness in their life of taking the worst that could happen. And with Jesus Christ and the power of his word and resurrection, it gets turned around where they keep walking through life, and what leaves them, what's following them is goodness and mercy, not miserable, bad speech. It's your fault. It's their fault. No, God takes losers and makes them into winners. So you got to answer the question for yourself. Whatever phase of life you're at, there's a season that you have for your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Every season, every decade presents a different season. If you're still living out of a mindset of days gone by, you got to wake up and smell the coffee. Life is passing you by, and if life is passing you by and you're not taking the word of God and letting it change you, you're going to get to the end of your life, and what's there. And like Apostle said, make sure you run your race. You've got a race, whether you want to accept it or not. You better understand that God's given you a race to run. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we don't stand before God having sin judged. We stand before God, what did you do with your race? Because that has everything to do with what you're doing with Jesus Christ. Hallelujah. So God is going to look at you and say,